hi, hello, how are you? I'm Pia. Today I'm doing the most exciting video of the year, which is my top 10 books I read in 2023. I gotta be honest, this was not a good reading year for me. I basically had like 10 5-star reads. Maybe it's my own fault, maybe I don't know my own reading taste. Like genuinely, it could be me. The problem could genuinely be me. But I just I didn't read as much this year, which we'll get to in like my wrap up. I just wasn't loving reading this year. And I think that's obvious in kind of like my reads. Like, didn't have a lot of favorites, but the favorites that I do have, I'm very excited to talk about. A lot of them are like backlist titles, some of them are new titles, some of them are in like new genres and new kind of things for me to be reading, which is really exciting. First one of my favorite books that I read this year is Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikatsu Kawaguchi. This is a translated work. It is a series of kind of like portal magic things happening. There's this coffee shop that has a particular table that you can sit at, and you can sit across from someone in the past and have a conversation with them and kind of time travel in a way, but you can't change the present and you can only stay until the coffee gets cold. So there are 4 different little like stories about this situation, about this like using this device in this story, and I really enjoyed this. I ended up giving this 4.5 out of 5 stars, so this is like why it's at like number 10 in my favorites, because I didn't absolutely love this. It was one of my 5-star predictions and I did really enjoy it. Like, I thought that it was really hard hitting. There was one story about like dementia and losing like a loved one to aging, and another one about a breakup and sisters, and like there were a lot of different things going on within this story, and I really like them, and some of them hit harder than others, but I definitely recommend this book, and I'm definitely going to continue with the series because I just think that there are such endless possibilities of using this kind of like Before the Coffee Gets Cold transporting magic situation, so I'm really in love with it. My number 9 is probably going to be on a lot of favorites lists this year, and that's because it came out this year and so did its sequel, and that is Fourth Wing. So Fourth Wing, I have no real reason to like Fourth Wing. If you really critically look at what I read and what I like, there's nothing really I like about this book. There's nothing I like about it. I don't really like the plot, I don't really like the relationships, I don't really like the characters, but something about this book really works for me. And this is not me trying to sell you on this book, because I think that plenty of people are already doing that. This is me saying like, there's nothing I really like about this book except I absolutely love it. Like, I just like, there's no reason I should like this book, but I do. And I see that it's bad. I see that it's not good. Somehow, despite it all, really enjoyed my time reading these books. So this is Fourth Wing. If you didn't know what it's about a girl who is supposed to be a scribe but becomes a dragon rider, and she gets, you know, bonded to dragons, and she's like having this love-hate thing with this guy who's supposed to protect her. You know, of course, there's gonna be some sort of like opposing views within the politics of the society, and like things are shaken there. And like, I don't know what works about this book for me. I can't defend it. I do think I kind of hate it in some ways, yet it's so addicting and so like, it's like, it honestly, like, this is one of those books, and like I almost put it higher on the list just because of like how much it reignited like my love for books. Like, it just reminds me of reading books when I was in middle school, of reading the Divergent series, of falling in love with reading. And I think that's really what does it for me about these books, is like, they're not good, but they remind me of those first books that I read when I started to care about what I was reading, and I started to actually choose what I was reading for the first time in my life. And I think there's something so magical about that it just has this almost nostalgia for me. I have no idea. Like, I genuinely, if you hate this book, if you think it's bad, I agree with you like wholeheartedly. I respect the opinion, genuinely. I just, for some reason, love this. I don't know why. Next up is a book that I really loved, and I didn't read a lot of like YA contemporary romances this year, but they are some of my favorite books. They just bring me so much joy because they're so easy to read and so lighthearted. My favorite out of the ones that I've read this year was called The Planning Perfect. This is a book that it's sapphic, it's about a wedding, it's about a like type A main character, best friends to lovers, and it is so sweet and just so perfect. Like, I really loved the main character in this one. I loved her relationship with her mom. It was really interesting. They kind of had like a Gilmore Girls relationship going on. The whole setting of this like apple orchard and like wedding planning and stuff like that was really fun. And yeah, I don't know. I love YA contemporaries. I will hopefully continue to read them. Now, you know, I'm out of the age range now, but I still will keep reading them hopefully, and I think they're just like, they've gotten so good. Like, there are such good ones out there, so I love them, and this one was my favorite that I read this year. Completely taking a left turn out of YA contemporaries is The Way of Kings. I started the Stormlight Archives series this year, and I read The Way of Kings. I finally finished this book. Let me just tell you, I started this book like 3 years ago. Like, let me actually think about it. Was it 3 years ago? It was 2 years ago. I started this book 2 years ago because my roommate at the time really loved Brandon Sanderson and was raving about the series, so I just picked it up, and then I read like 30% of it, and then I completely forgot about it for like 2 years. But I finally got back to it, and I just like completely was absorbed by this world and these characters. Like, there is so much to this book. Like, I absolutely cannot give you a synopsis of this book. Like, I don't know like what to tell you about it because like everything I could tell you would be like a spoiler. The most interesting parts are spoilers, so like I don't know how to pitch it to you, but it is a magical world, and there is this thing called Stormlight, which is kind of the magic of this world, and it's like powered by storms, so it's kind of like a weather thing. Lights, you know, charges, powers, different things. Different people can wield it, and there's different politics between the people that can wield it, and there's lots of talk about social class and war and just politics, and like just there's a lot going on. We follow 3 central characters, but there's also perspectives from other like side characters in the book, which I really like. Kaladin is my favorite character. I already have plans to read the remaining books. I know that I want to say it's the 4th or the 5th book. The next book in the series is coming out next December 2024. So I have lots of time to catch up on these 1,000-pager books, but I am absolutely loving this. Like, it's so out of character for me, but I really just think that like Brandon Sanderson does such a great job. And if you're new to high fantasy like me, you know, I don't really read a lot of it. I tend to stick with standalones. This is a really great series and a great starting point. The first half of this year seems like that was last year. Like, that was so long ago. But anyway, one of those books that I read during the forgotten first half of this year is Just Kids by Patti Smith, and this is a memoir, and I loved this. I mean, all the girlies on like Book Talk and Bookstagram are like always posting about this, which is really interesting because like it's really dark and really sad. It's about Patti Smith and her relationship with her best friend, and how they moved to New York, and like we're living in New York. It's about like early 70s living in New York, and the AIDS epidemic, and growing up, and you know, being a starving artist, and all these things. And like Patti Smith is so interesting. She's such a great writer, and she's literally so talented. Like, she can do literally everything. It's so annoying, but it's mostly about her relationship with her best friend, and it's really beautiful, and I love it a lot. It definitely is a hard read. You know, there's lots of talk about drugs and substance abuse and dark thoughts, and you know, being in a dark place, but I think it's a really beautiful and impactful book, and it was one of my favorites that I read this year. Next up, a more recent read and my recent favorite is Death in Her Hands by Ottesha Moshfegh. This is my first book by this author, and I loved it. It reminded me of another book that's on this list that's a little higher up, but it is about a older woman who finds this note in the forest while she's walking her dog, and it says something along the lines of, "This is the body of this woman. I didn't kill her. Find her killer." It's something like that. That's not exactly what it says. But so Magda, our main character, gets really attached and obsessed with the idea of this note and this person and this possible killer and this murder, and like, who was this woman that was murdered, and like what happened to the murderer, and like she just completely just like goes off the rails and becomes super obsessed and super like just kind of spiraling about this note that she finds, and you know, she doesn't find anything else, and it's so interesting. It's really introspective, which I really like. There's not a whole lot of like plot going on. It's mostly just in her head, and again, like these kind of thought spirals of like going off on like trying to figure out what's going on and like what happened to this woman, if anything happened. And it's so interesting. It's like a much quieter story, you know, it's not splashy, but it's really well done, and I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I definitely will read more from this author. I haven't yet, but this one was so good. I really loved it. Coming in at number 4, these ones I feel like my top 5 are ranked. Okay, so coming in at number 4 is Chlorine by Jade Song. Holy crap, this is, I think this might be the only book on this list that I've read in one day, almost one sitting. This is the UK cover, in case you're curious. I bought this while I was in London over the summer. You know, I went to the bookstore, went to Waterstones, walked there, sat on a bench, read some of this book, got back to my flat, and then read more of it, and then stayed up till I finished this book. I don't read like that much these days, and this book was so captivating. It is so intense. It is so unique. I have never read a book like this before. I've never read a book with this type of horror before. Like, I wouldn't call this horror, I guess, but it definitely has horrific elements. Definitely body horror for sure. But this is about a swimmer who, you know, swimming is kind of her whole life, and she gets obsessed with the idea of mermaids and becoming a mermaid and kind of using that as an escape from all the things that she's dealing with. And so it's told through her perspective, as well as letters from her kind of like childhood crush, other teammates, this girl that she's interested in, which are letters to her after she has become a mermaid. And you really don't know what this means of her becoming a mermaid until like the very, very end. And when I tell you that like my jaw was on the floor, like I could not. And I still think about this book. It's so good. Like, it's written so well, and it is breathtaking and visceral and just, like I said, unlike anything I've ever read. And I was so astounded by how good this book was. And I loved it so much. Next up, number 3, I read We Spread back in January. This was one of the Goodreads Choice Award winners of 2022, so I read that for a video. And this was the book I was saying Death in Her Hands reminded me of, because We Spread is following a older woman who is kind of forced into a nursing home. She's told she's had a fall and she can't take care of herself anymore. And she is forced into this nursing home, and things are not as they seem in this home. And you're kind of, again, in this spiral with her of trying to find out what's going on in this home. Things are weird, you know, she's trying to piece her memory together. Is she losing her memory because she's getting older, or is it because something weird is going on and someone's like messing with her brain? Like, what is it that's going on? Is there anything weird that's going on here? And it's so interesting. Like, I'm obsessed with this book. Again, like, this is another one I haven't stopped thinking about it since I read it. Like, I want to reread it because it was so good. This is exactly my type of horror as well, because it like really, really builds over the course of the book, and it's not super like in your face, like I said about something else. I think it's categorized as like literary horror, which, do I know what that means? No. But it is just this kind of like unsteady, unsettling feeling throughout the book, and it's really great. It just like builds on itself and gets to a really interesting point and reveal. I just really liked it. It's my favorite horror of the year. My favorite horror maybe that I've read ever? I don't know if I can say that, but it's so good, and I really, really highly recommend it. Next up, coming in at number 2, the number 2 spot is Disorientation. I think I read Disorientation in the spring. It feels spring to me. I don't know why. This is from the library, which, shout out to libraries. I haven't been using my local library very recently, but I do love my local library. And I picked this up on a whim. I was like, I like the cover. I've kind of heard of it. And wow, okay. Wow. Like, for some people, like, Yellowface really did it for them. Disorientation really did it for me. It's saying a similar thing. This is a commentary on academia and the whiteness of academia, and it's about a woman who's writing her dissertation, and she is absolutely, like, fallen apart. Like, she cannot write her dissertation. It's not happening. And she's writing it, and she doesn't really want to write this dissertation at all, because she's been pigeonholed into writing about this Asian poet because she's Asian, but she's not even the same, like, ethnicity as this poet, and, like, that's a whole thing. But so she doesn't really even want to like start it, and it's due, so that's a problem. You know, she starts doing the research for it finally, and she starts uncovering these secrets about the identity of this poet, and just things unravel from there, and it's so fascinating. Oh my god, like, again, I want to reread it. Like, it is so well done, and like, it's saying so much and doing so much, especially like the way it ends, and like the way it like resolves everything, I think is really an interesting choice. But you really are kind of on this journey with the main character, and finding out things that she does, and it is so good. It is so good. It blew my mind. It's a thriller in some ways, it's literary in others. It is so fascinating, and I don't think I recommend this book nearly enough. I don't think I do, but I will amend that in the new year, because this book was so good. It was so good. Oh my god. And then last but certainly not least, my favorite book that I read this year was Beartown by Frederick Bachman. And when I say Beartown, I do mean Beartown, Us Against You, and The Winners, because I did read all 3 of these books this year. But Beartown isn't my favorite. I don't know. I can't pick my favorite, okay? Oh, Beartown does have a special place in my heart. I read this book this year. I fell in love with Frederick Bachman this year. I discovered him last year, but I really have been on a mission to read like everything this man has written, and like I also just like am obsessed with him. Like I love him. But Beartown is following the events of this sexual assault that occurs by the kind of like star player on the hockey team to the coach's daughter. And this is a town, Beartown, where hockey is like their only thing. They're kind of like a down on their luck town, and they don't have a lot going on, but hockey is like the thing that they all kind of bond over. So this like event kind of shatters the whole town. Like it splits them in half of people who believe Maya, our girl who was assaulted, and people who like side with the abuser. It is horrible. It is really fucking sad, but the characters in this book are fucking fantastic. Can I just say, Frederick Bachman writes some of the best characters ever, and he has a cast of characters that's like 20 plus people, and yet everyone is so distinguished. Everyone has their own thing. Everyone's voice is absolutely heard, and it is like absolutely perfect. Like I don't know how Frederick Bachman does it, but he does. You really get to know this town and feel a part of it in some ways. The town, you know, is a character. Absolutely made me bawl crying. Like I was in pieces reading this book. It is so lovely. Like the friendships in here are so amazing and strong. The family dynamics are really lovely. There's a great like father-daughter relationship that I really loved reading about. And there's just like such vast array of characters, you know, because there's so many, they're so different. And the way that they play off each other is so interesting. And just Beartown, you know, like I don't think I want to live in Beartown, to be honest, because of like of the shit that happens in these 3 books. And like, can this town get a break? I'd visit. I'd go to a hockey game, maybe. I'm going crazy. Anyway, this book is fantastic. The series is fantastic. If you've only read the first book, please read the other 2. Please do. Especially if you like really liked the first book and you're like, I don't know, I don't read series. I don't read like contemporary series. Contemporary series I feel like are super hit or miss, but the sequels just like build this up even more, and it's just like absolutely incredible. I have yet to see the adaptation of this, which I'm really nervous about watching, but I believe it was done by HBO, and it's in Swedish in the original version because it's a translated book. So I am very interested to see that. Yeah, I absolutely love this book. I recommend this to literally everyone. Like literally everyone. I will be like, please read Frederick Bachman once in your life. Like it will do you such a service. This man is the most empathetic human being I've ever met. Like I love this man. Okay, so those are my top 10 books that I read in 2023. I have quite a few goals for 2024 for my reading. Mostly just taking it a little bit easier and hopefully finding that brings me some new favorites. Because I'm hoping next year when I do this video, it won't be so hard to find 10 books that I like. Let me know some of your favorite books that you read in 2023. If we have any of the same favorites, we could be twins. But yeah, with that being said, make sure to like and subscribe to all the things, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!